Mario has always had some of the best side series and spin-off titles from any major gaming franchise. But of all the side series games Mario has ever been a part of, none will ever top the glory of Paper Mario. I just get the feeling that one day at Nintendo they were sort of brainstorming ideas and the meeting kinda just went like this. Alright, so thank you all for coming to this meeting. Do any of you have any brand new ideas for this new game we're developing? What if we did something crazy and gave Mario something like a Super Soaker? No, that'll never catch on. What about you, Tim? I mean, I don't have any great ideas and I just have a prototype here, but what about Flat Mario? That is so You know what? That might work. The Paper Mario series is widely beloved by tons of fans, many of whom, myself included, would argue that they are better than the normal Mario adventures. The story, characters, and gameplay are all superb to the average Mario platformer, along with just taking way more time to beat. And I don't just mean speedruns, but just casual playthroughs will take you hours upon hours longer to complete, which just adds to the fun. This is one of the few series where the developers absolutely nailed it and made a nearly perfect game twice, an alright game, and then we don't need to talk about it. But all those games were nice, turn-based RPGs, just with different twists put on it. But what about the game that came right in the middle of the series that was completely different from what the series had done before and different from what they have done since? How did Paper Mario fare after the success of Thousand Year Door on Nintendo's most successful console, the Nintendo Wii? I've been making my way through the Paper Mario games backwards, starting with Color Splash and then going to Satan. But now I think it's time that we continue that trend and move on to the next game in the series. Today, we're taking a look at Super Paper Mario. Super Paper Mario was released on April 9th, 2007 and obviously is the third game in this beloved series. The game was actually originally planned for a release on the GameCube in 2006, but was moved to the newer console. And because it was moved to the Wii, you know exactly what they slapped right on top of it. A few of the gameplay aspects were tweaked to allow for motion controls, which led to the release date being pushed back to 2007. But as you will see, there really was only one change that they made with motion controls that even mattered, so I don't know how it pushed the game back an entire year. The game opens up just like every other Paper Mario game, with Mario being informed of Peach being kidnapped. Since it could only be one person, or rather lizard turtle, Mario and Luigi storm off to Bowser's castle to save her. It turns out Bowser didn't kidnap Peach, although he was literally about to. Then a new villain shows up named Count Bleck who sucks Bowser and Luigi while leaving Mario unconscious. Out of context, that probably sounds really bad. The game then randomly cuts to Bowser and Peach about to get married. Oh wait, wrong game. The game then cuts to Bowser and Peach getting married, which allows Count Bleck to open the void to fulfill the prophecy he read in the Dark Prognosticus. Prognosticus? The Dark Fortune Teller book. Mario is then awoken by Tippy, aka slightly less annoying Navi, who takes him the flip side where he meets Merlin, who shows Mario that he is the true hero spoken of in the light. Oh I have to say that word again. Prognosticus, because of course he is. Mario learns that he needs to collect the 8 pure hearts to counteract Count Bleck. Or you can just say no and have to restart and watch all those damn cutscenes again. Merlin gives Mario the first pure heart, which he takes to the pillar to reveal the door to the first world of the game. Now that I have dumped all that amazing information on you, let's talk about what really sets this game apart from the others in the series. You remember how in the old games you would just run around in a beautiful but weird 3D environment with difficult strategy-induced turn-based battling? Well, they threw all of that out the fucking window and turned this game into a 2D platformer. I have said this before, and I will say it again. I do not mind the idea of changing certain gameplay mechanics if it fits the new game well. However, when has it ever been a good idea to change the main gameplay mechanic of your super successful predecessors? It didn't work for the game after this, it didn't work in the Sonic Riders series, and it sure as hell didn't work for Banjo-Kazooie. But with all of that said, this might be one of the only times that changing the entire main gameplay actually kind of worked. Maybe it's because the hatred for the changes they made in Sticker Star are so abundant, but you never hear of anybody hating on the gameplay for Super Paper Mario. And you wanna know why? Because even though it's different, it is still fun and makes sense. It's just like the average Super Mario platformer, but still with all the charm that Paper Mario games almost always have. I do miss the turn-based battling because that will always be one of my favorite ways to battle in any game, but I can look past that with the new mechanics for this game. And remember how I said there was really only one use of the motion controls? Well, you can point the Wii Remote at the screen to uncover hidden secrets, which is a cool ability, but honestly, there was no reason for this to be used with motion controls. They could have just mapped it to a button like they did with the best new ability, turning from 2D to 3D. Pressing A lets you completely flip your perspective and play through levels entirely differently, which is by far one of the most creative ideas Paper Mario has ever had. The one thing that I definitely miss though are the partners that you get to travel with. Instead, in Super Paper Mario, you will encounter these pixels that look sort of like something I would have drawn in 2nd grade. These all have their own special abilities that makes battling and exploring the world way more exciting than just jumping on stuff. They let you have great abilities that replace any power-ups or partners from the old games, like being able to ground pound, use a hammer, and use bombs. I just wish they had more of a personality and had more creative names, since their names basically just tell you exactly what they do. Thoro lets you throw things, Carry carries you across obstacles, and the one that lets you use bombs, called Boomer. Okay, but the absolute best way they took advantage of this new battling style is with the bosses. The first boss of any game is supposed to be a bit of a challenge, but more so just help teach you the mechanics of the game. And the boss of Chapter 1, Fractail, does exactly that. He gives that imposing and scary look like Hooktail from Thousand Year Door, but also makes use of your pixels and turning to 3D to avoid his attacks and hit him. It's fantastic, and all the bosses are like this, using the pixels you get in that chapter for different techniques to defeat them. And the chapters in this game altogether are just as fantastic and cover all the bases for an amazing story. You travel through ruins to defeat a dragon, you need to stop a plant from controlling people's bodies, you get to beat up a nerd, and you fall into debt but can't pay it off. This game got a little too real. The only real difference in these chapters from the previous 2 games is that every chapter is split into 4 sub-chapters. Instead of just one large world that the whole chapter takes place in, every sub-chapter is its own little level with puzzles you need to complete to reach the goal at the end and move on to the next. It's really almost a perfect blend of the classic Super Mario Bros. Formula and the exploration with puzzles from the first 2 Paper Marios. I do miss how everything was connected in the first game and how everything is almost completely separated, but it is still a fun time and just makes it feel like there's more levels to explore. The one thing though that is severely lacking in these worlds is the charm that all the NPCs had. They were able to do some amazing things in the first 2 games by taking a regular enemy and turning them into a cool, interesting, and downright funny character, which is what really made the Paper Mario games great. Super Paper Mario is full of these spring-like characters. I really don't know what to call them, but everyone looks and acts the fucking same, which takes away from the great characters we used to have. But you know how they made up for the lack of NPCs that you can care about? They finally listened to what everyone wanted and let you play as Paper Luigi. And not just Luigi, but you can play as Peach and Bowser, all with different abilities, which makes the game so much more fun. Because I don't know about you, but for some weird reason, I don't like to play as Mario in Mario games, as strange as that might sound. Like in Mario Kart or any multiplayer game, I never play as Mario since he's the most basic. So this adds a much needed variety over the constant shoving of Mario down your throat. And like I said, it's more than just an aesthetic change because all of them have different abilities to help you solve different puzzles. Mario is the only character that can flip from 2D to 3D, Peach can float with her parasol, Bowser can breathe fire, and Luigi can do a super jump which just springs him way up into the air. They all have their positives and negatives, so you can just pick whichever character you like the most and roll with them. I usually go with Bowser because his attacks do double damage, and even though he moves the slowest, if you just use Carry, he moves just as fast and is OP as hell. The game also doesn't just give them to you right away, so you can appreciate each character when you unlock them. You gain Peach in Chapter 2, Bowser in Chapter 3, and Luigi not all the way until Chapter 7 because before then he's mind-controlled and tries to kill Mario. Side note, Mr. L really should be a costume in Smash Bros, but that's a topic for another date. And I know it might seem like I'm flipping and flopping between the good and bad things of this game, and yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing because that's a great segue to talk about the main hub world of this game. The game centers on a world known as Flipside with doors to all the chapters of the game on the top. It's full of these spring people I mentioned earlier, and honest to God, might be my least favorite part of the entire game. It's so bland and lifeless with no characters that I actually want to go out of my way to talk to. Just compare this to Rogueport from Thousand Year Door or Toad Town from the original. Those places felt lively, full of character, and I probably would have rolled my windows up driving through Rogueport, but that just adds to the experience. And none of that takes away from how much fun I had just walking around and doing little side quests or talking to random NPCs. Flipside doesn't have any of that. Sure, there are some small things like letting a fish go free so that you can use its bowl as a helmet in outer space because physics, but that might be the most exciting thing you can do, and that's not even technically a side quest because it's required to beat the main story. I mean, eventually you can also visit Flopside, which is supposed to be a darker version of Flipside, but it's literally the same thing, just everything is black instead of white and gray. Really, the only thing to do here between chapters is find the next heart pillar, which I will give the game credit for. It's much more enjoyable than just taking a crystal star to the same big-ass door over and over again. And every pillar is hidden behind some obstacle that can only be passed by using the same ability you gained in the last chapter, which just makes it even more enjoyable too. But other than that, literally the only thing to do besides the main story is the Pit of 100 Trials. This pit is much different than Thousand Year Door, with each floor being a sort of maze with 5 minutes to defeat a random enemy with a key, instead of just fighting progressively more and more powerful enemies. I don't personally like this pit as much as Thousand Year Door, but there are 2 of them in this game, so I guess that kind of makes up for it. Both Flipside and Flopside have their own Pit of 100 Trials, which are more or less the same, except the bosses at the end are vastly different. The Flipside pit has Racktail, which is essentially a more powerful Fractail, just like how Thousand Year Door did it with Bonetail being a more powerful Hooktail. But Flopside is completely different. When you reach the 100th floor, the boss does not reveal itself and forces you to redo the entire pit again before you can actually fight it. So if you really think about it, this game kinda has 3 Pit of 100 Trials. But once you do make it back to the final floor, Shadow will reveal itself and copies Mario, Peach, Bowser, and Luigi, so you're essentially fighting yourself, which is a fantastic boss idea. Although it would have been better if they didn't already do that. But taking into account fighting all 4 of its forms, it is technically the strongest enemy in the entire game, even stronger than the final boss. Both of these pits give you fantastic rewards, like a brand new pixel named Dashel who, you guessed it, lets you run really fast from Flipside, and Flopside giving you a bunch of cards. This is the worst prize they could have ever given us. Just imagine if you completed the most difficult optional side quest in any game and they just said, "Congratulations on completing the Pit of 100 Trials. It is a very difficult task. Thank you so much. I put so much time and effort into this. What's my prize? You get 3 cards." Fuck! But even though the game lacks in side quests, the story more than makes up for it, being arguably the best in the whole series. After you're making your way through 7 grueling chapters, you can enter Count Bleck's castle where you take each of his minions on one-on-one until you are only left with Mario versus the Count himself. And just like every Paper Mario final boss to ever exist, he is invincible until you harness the power of whatever main collectible that game had to fight him on an even playing field. You then can take him down once and for all. Psych! Demento appears out of nowhere and reveals that since Count Bleck is out of the way, he can take control of the Chaos Heart and activates one of the mind control plants he placed in Luigi earlier to turn him back into Mr. L, before he puts them in a blender with himself to become the invincible Super Demento. I know what you're thinking, so I'll just say it for you. What the fuck? This is such a weird twist final boss, but I don't care because it's amazing and it has even more amazing battle music. The early Paper Mario games knew how to do a final boss with twists like fighting a possessed Peach and a mind-controlled Luigi. Nowadays, all we have is Bowser after he fell into a tar pit. Once he is defeated, the Void continues to try to consume them, so the heroes try to escape while Count Bleck and your partner Tippy renew their vows to create more pure hearts to stop the destruction. I will say it again. What the fuck? Mario and the gang then wakes up at Flipside where they learn that they saved the world and wonder what happened to Bleck and Tippy. I don't think you want to know that, Mario. That whole relationship seemed a bit weird to me, and I'm not sure I'm okay seeing a weird purple wizard fuck a butterfly. Super Paper Mario is without a doubt the most unique game in this series, just with the completely different gameplay mechanics that it has. But even though the only thing that resembles the other games in the series is that everything is flat, this game is still phenomenal. Maybe not the best, but I mean, Thousand Year Door still exists, so it never really had a chance. This game felt like a sort of transition period where they didn't really know what to do with the franchise moving forward. It kept most of the good dialogue and story structure from the previous games, but the actual gameplay couldn't be more different. Going from a turn-based RPG to a 2D platformer is such a big diversion, yet it worked pretty well. The controls are smooth and the battling is much quicker and action-paced because it's not turn-based. Although if you do miss that style, Chapter 7 has a battle taken straight out of Earthbound, so there's something for everyone. There may not be many side quests to complete, but the story is fantastic and everyone knows how much I love a good story. The levels are designed super well, although not to the extent of the original game since everything is separated, but for what it is, it's pretty damn good. The only thing this game is missing are the partners because the pixels just aren't the same. Just compare this stick figure boomer to Bobbery, the mustachioed pirate Captain Bomb with a wheel coming out of his ass. You can see why I say this game lacks character. I love this game, but I just gotta be honest, I really wish we could go back to the original 2-game style. I know it's really unlikely, but I just hope one day we can go back to that style, so all we can do is hope and pray at this point. We're gonna be praying for a while.